Before we proceed with the items on the agenda, I need to remind you of the usual housekeeping messages. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the chamber by the nearest door, then follow the illuminated exit signs and assemble in the car park at the rear of the building. Also, would you please ensure that your phones and tablet devices are in silent mode. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Apologies for absence have so far been received from Councillor Baxter. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Cattrall.
Councillor Peter Cartridge.
Thank you. Councillor Ellison.
Councillor Emerald.
Thank you. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is confirmation of the minutes. Can I please have a proposal that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 3rd of October be approved as a correct record?
Happy to propose those, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder for that proposal?
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Does anyone want to comment on the factual accuracy of the minutes or propose an amendment? With those members present at the 3rd of October meeting who are in favour of confirming the minutes as a correct record, please indicate.
Well, I think that was 39.
Those against? Any abstentions? The minutes are confirmed. The next item on the agenda is the declaration of interest. Do any members or officers have any interest to declare on any items on the agenda? The next item is announcements. I have 4 announcements to make, and I'll try and be brief. Firstly, there's a concert by the Lancashire Youth Symphony Orchestra and the Lancashire Youth Concert Band in aid of my charities, which will be held at 3 o'clock on Sunday the 8th of December at Hodgson High School. And tickets are available from Andrea Mullen, as always. Make a note of that if you intend to come. I'll be very grateful. A reminder that the Mayor's Civic Dinner is at the North Houston Hotel, Fleetwood, on the 28th of February 2020 at 7 o'clock. Tickets are now on sale from Andrea Mullen. This is the sticky announcement. Would any councillor who has not yet paid their promised sponsorship money for my Wyre walk, please do so as soon as possible. I'd hate to have to follow you home tonight. And failing that, I don't think many of you know this, but my mayoress, Andrea Kay, used to be a bailiff in Cleveland, Doc Martens and a leather miniskirt. So unless you want someone knocking on your door, because I understand she's 100% success rate for collecting debts, and I would hate to have to send her around. So if you could possibly donate your pledge and put it in the bag and tick off as paid, that would be fantastic. Can I start, Councillor Vincent, with you, please? We'll go around the cabinet, this row, and then round the back row. Thank you very much. Finally, a reminder, the next council meeting, which should have been on the 12th of December, has been postponed because of the general election. The meeting will now take place on Thursday, the 9th of January 2020. Unfortunately, there won't be any Christmas festivities after a meeting before Christmas in the members' lounge. However, in the new year, there will be drinks and festive New Year nibbles, whether you're being congratulated or commiserated, whichever side, there will be some celebration or commiseration in the form of drinks and nibbles in January. That's my 4 notices. However, there is one from Councillor Kay. I understand that you do wish to make an announcement, Councillor Kay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Stand up.
Madam Mayor, as Armed Forces Champion for Wyre, I would like to present this Gold Award to the Council. The award is for the Armed Forces Employers Recognition Scheme. It encourages employers to support veterans and inspire others to do the same. The scheme encompasses bronze, silver and gold awards for the employer organisations that pledge, demonstrate, advocate to the Armed Forces community. I would like also my gratitude to be placed on the record for the unfailing support of Paul Deakin. As you know, I've not come from an Armed Forces background, so I'd like to give you the standing mark.
Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to accept this on behalf of the Council. Well done. Wyre Borough Council. I don't think you'll be able to see much from there, but we can look afterwards if you'd like to. I understand now that the Chief Executive has an announcement to make.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And the observant members amongst you, which you are all very observant, will have noticed that there's been a bit of a colour change to my left. We now have 5 green, I think that's the colour, dark green nameplates. And that's as a result of me receiving a formal notification that the 4 UKIP members have actually come together with the then one Brexit member to form a new Brexit group of 5 members. The leader of the group is Councillor O'Neill and the deputy leader is Councillor Gerard. There will be implications for seat numbers as a result of a 4 and a 1 going to a 5, but we will bring before you at the next meeting of full council a report which reflects that change. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I do feel I ought to say at this point, would anybody else like to make an announcement? Right, thank you, we'll move on. We're on to item 5 on the agenda, the appointment of corporate directors. Councillor Henderson, would you introduce the report and propose the recommendations, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is before members and I should like to propose the recommendation of 3.1. Personally, also, I should like to give my thanks to Mark Broadhurst for his contribution, and I am glad that he has accepted the role of Head of Housing Services. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the proposals?
Yeah, I would like to second that, Madam Mayor, and can I say that we have a very high quality staff at Wyre, and all 4 of the candidates for what were 3 positions were of the highest possible calibre. And it's a pity that any of them had to lose effectively, and Mark Bullington was the one who did. Mark Pratchett. Mark Broadhurst. Sorry. He was fairly close. And I wish all of them well for the future, and I'm happy that Mark Broadhurst has decided to stay with us.
Thank you. Are there any comments, questions or amendments? Councillor Henderson? Would members please vote now on the recommendations? Those in favour, please show. That's unanimous, thank you very much. The recommendations are approved. Item 6. We'll just wait for these 3 officers to come in. I hope so. On behalf of all of us, I'd like to offer you 3 more congratulations. Well done, I'm very pleased. Item 6, public questions and statements. There don't appear to be any questions or statements, so I think we'll be able to move on quite quickly to item 7. Questions are noted from councillors. Again, none of you submitted any questions, so we're moving on to item 8. Executive reports. First, the report of the Leader of the Council. Councillor Henderson, would you please introduce your report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is before members. I'll give a brief update regarding 2.1. Excuse me. Regarding 2.1 on Lancashire District Leaders and Lancashire Leaders. Lancashire District Leaders realistically is just the meeting before Lancashire Leaders, which of course is only for district leaders. Lancashire County Council isn't represented, and neither are the unitaries represented as well. And we generally discuss the agenda for Lancashire Leaders meeting, if we're happy with it, if there are any items that we wish to bring up collectively, or anything that we wish to comment on. So as we go to the Lancashire Leaders meeting, the Pennine Lancashire Unitary, which I have spoken about before, there was a very brief update on that. The Blackburn and Darwin, who are the lead authority, they've received an acknowledgement from the government regarding the bid for unitary status, but no further progress has been made, which at the moment is quite understandable. The leader of Lancashire County Council, however, has sent a letter to the government and clarified that the County Council did not have a preferred option for local government reorganisation, but they do recognise the need to discuss options with other leaders. And because of that, it had been agreed to nominate that 3 district leaders would meet with the leader of Lancashire County Council to discuss a proper way forward that would benefit Lancashire as a whole. And those 3 councillors are Councillor Briggs, who's an independent leader, Councillor Atkinson, Conservative leader, and Councillor Bradley, who's a Labour leader. So it is a cross-party meeting that they will have. We were also given a presentation on the Lancashire 2025 County of Culture bid, which used to be, of course, or still is, the City Culture bid, but Lancashire has decided through the Marketing Lancashire to put in a bid for the whole of Lancashire to try to become the County of Culture for 2025. If that's successful, events will actually go around Lancashire in a clockwise position at different times of the year, trying to show off all that is best for Lancashire. And that's going to be led by Tony Attard, who is the chairman of Marketing Lancashire, who was last year's High Sheriff. The Greater Lancashire Plan. This, at times, is possibly a combined authority by another name as such. It's still in its early stages. It does have quite a lot of merit. It has more merit, to my mind.
It needs time to wind up.
Okay, very quickly. In my mind, it will be better than the combined authority, and if we can get it going, it would be a lot better. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry about that.
Thank you. I will take questions from Lady Atkins first.
Thank you, Wyre. Item 3.4, could you expand a bit on the one carbon world?
Thank you.
Certainly. I mentioned the one carbon world, I believe, at the last meeting, and to explain it in its fullness. Now that we've put together a climate change members committee, there has to be a start point, and there's a start point for everything. And this was brought up at the Lancashire Leaders as well, and the District Leaders meeting. There are still some of our authorities, especially over in East Lancashire, who have not yet put forward a climate change policy at all, and they are being asked to do so as soon as possible, so that we can all look at what is happening together. And the Carbon Trust, it is a worldwide carbon trust that has actually got the backing of the United Nations. And basically what they do is they will come along to any organisation and they will look at everything and give you your starting point for your carbon figures. And that's where we've got to start from. There is no point in saying that we'll change the lights, we'll do this, we'll do that. We need to know an overall pattern. There is a charge to it, but the charge is not a lot. It's about £3,000. But because we have said that all the authorities in Lancashire will go for it, we will get an 80% discount. So it comes down to approximately £600, which, when these people come in and tell you exactly what's what, it's a very good price. But not only that, it will then also, when we've done it, we can then pass that on to local businesses for them to look at their carbon footprint. So that's what that one's about.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Marinell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Henderson, regarding 2.1, excuse me, regarding 2.1 comments made at your recent Lancashire Leaders meeting regarding local government reorganisation, could you comment on the piece published in the Blackpool Gazette last Monday, please?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised actually when I read this piece, because we were in a meeting the week last Monday, which was an all-day, very important meeting, and a call came through to me. Would I contact the Gazette with a statement regarding the position that Lancashire County Council wants to look to reorganising the way that they work? Naturally, the answer was yes, I would like to do that from our point of view, but I'm in a meeting which will take most of the day, very busy indeed, very important meeting, and I will get back to them later. When the meeting had finished and I went along to speak with them at about 4 o'clock or something like that, they had said, oh, it's all right, it doesn't matter, it's too late. Which then a week later, to see it's in the Blackpool Gazette, and it doesn't mention Wyre, and it doesn't mention Blackpool, and it doesn't mention Fylde, but it mentions Lancashire County Council, I believe Chorley and Preston City with their quote about how Lancashire can be reorganised. The model is not a bad one. The model could be that if Lancashire County Council, with the agreement of everybody, wished for authorities to take on jobs that are not statutory, that they feel they could do better, is a very good idea. And that's why Preston City Council got in there and surely did, because they are in agreement that we could do some things better. I, for one, feel that we could do our public realm a lot better. A very, very simple one that we all know about is gully cleaning and gully maintenance. If we could take that back from Lancashire and have our own dedicated team throughout Wyre, I know that we do a heck of a lot better job than is being done at the moment. And a simplistic one that everybody sees is verge cutting. We actually go extra. We undertake verge cutting on behalf of Lancashire County Council, as do other authorities. But then we cut them more than we're supposed to, and we actually underwrite it. Not to a huge amount, but we still underwrite it to make sure we do a very good job. So it's those kind of things. But I was really surprised that they went ahead and published a full-page article in the Blackpool Gazette without speaking to either myself, Simon at Blackburn, or Fylde. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Fale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With regard to Wyre's 2019-20 Q1 business plan, which uses a traffic light system to indicate whether key projects are on track and whether key measures are improving or worsening, I've asked at ONS about a potential anomaly, but haven't had a satisfactory answer as yet. You may have observed that all projects bar one are green, whilst the majority of measures in place are amber and red. Does it indicate that the picture presented with regard to ongoing projects is not as rosy as it actually is? Or does it point to the projects not addressing the problem being measured? Or perhaps that the wrong things are being measured? Are you able to provide an explanation for this apparent anomaly and or provide an assurance that the anomaly will be addressed, whether the anomaly be a problem in reporting or an issue with the projects and the measures not being joined up? Thank you.
The latest business plan that I looked at, most of the indicators were actually in green, with only a couple in red and a few in amber. As you full well know, ONS actually look at the reports and look at it very, very closely. I can see you pointing out there. I mean, is that exactly the same one that I've got?
I don't know.
No, you don't know. So we'll take it that you don't know, but I know that the one that I've seen lately, most of them are green. I am sure that ONS will do its job and ask myself and the relevant officers to appear before them and to ask the very same questions that you're asking. And when I've been to ONS and looked at and listened to their questions, which I'm sure you'll put forward, then I will give my answers there.
Thank you. That concludes the leaders' report. Resources portfolio holder, Councillor Alan Vincent, would you please introduce your report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thankfully, I have nothing to add, so I'll take questions if you are any.
Are there any questions? No questions, so we'll move on. Street scene, parks and open spaces. Councillor Bridge, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing to add. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Councillor Swales, would you like to ask your question?
It's not actually a question, it's credit where credit's due. I'd like to say thank you to Lee Rossi, whom I shadowed for a full day. And it was interesting to see what he actually did on the front line. And the whole of that department actually are quite good. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, I'm sure you'll get bored of me saying, but I don't get bored of saying it myself. Fantastic team of people we have working at Wyre in all departments. Particularly proud of the ones in the departments that the book stops with me. They are a great group of people. Ready to see them out in all weathers, doing all sorts of jobs that go over and beyond what they are actually supposed to do. So thank you for the compliment.
Thank you, Councillor Bridge. No other questions, so that concludes the consideration of the report of streets and parks and open spaces. We will now move on to the report of the Planning and Economic Development portfolio. Councillor Michael Vincent, would you please introduce your report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one thing to add, which is with regards to the Future High Street Fund bid. The consultation will run for 3 weeks and it will be to look at a few of the options that are going to be mooted, to try and get a view from people about what they think about what should happen in Fleetwood and how the money should be spent if we win the bid. And specifically on the 3rd of December, there is a open meeting. Invites will be sent out to the relevant people. I've asked all Fleetwood Town Councillors and Borough Councillors being specifically invited, so you should get an invite with all the details. But I believe it's from 5 PM onwards approximately, and it's at the Loft House Suite on Wall Street. Nothing else on that.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Councillor Fair, I understand you've got a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hardly a week goes by without hearing that another of the shops on Victoria Road, Cllr, is about to shut. Although Iceland is a welcome recent addition, the general trend is not a good one, with shops like Marks and Spencer's apparently planning to vacate our high street. It is accepted that the issues of the high street are many and not easily solved, at least by councils alone. The government must play their role in doing what they can to revive our high streets, including levelling the playing field for traditional retailers and online sellers. However, there are things this council could be doing to improve Wyre's daytime economy and increase footfall and disposable income. And hopefully, the necessary action will become clear when the council's High Street Task Group studies the existing problems. Councils also need to be wary that actions have consequences. What councils should not be doing is actively making the situation worse for the high street. Bad decisions often come back to haunt you. And I'm just wondering, does the portfolio holder agree with me that the planned move of Marks and Spencer's in Cllr to the new retail park at Norcross is a direct consequence of this council not sufficiently fighting for the retention of well-paid civil service jobs at Norcross, and also a direct consequence of this council compounding matters by reallocating the employment land as housing and retail? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vincent, would you please respond?
No, I don't agree with him because he's wrong. Ultimately, the decision was taken to close the civil service. This council was against that and would have preferred it to stay. It was a good employer and it employed a lot of people, including members of my immediate family. So a lot of people lost their jobs. We did what we could, but ultimately when a decision like that is made, there's not a lot we can do about it. When it came to the entire site being an employment site, and in terms of the local plan and for planning purposes, the evidence didn't support what he is suggesting. Planning is rule-based and we followed the rules.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, that concludes the consideration of the Planning and Economic Development portfolio. We will now move on to the report of the Neighbourhood Services and Community Safety portfolio. Councillor Berry, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just two announcements. On the 5th of December, Landpack will be holding a crime prevention conference in Blackburn. If any member wants to join me in going to Blackburn for that event, would they please contact me ASAP so I can get a reservation for them. And secondly, Madam Mayor, I'm very pleased to say that we've just received the bathing water quality results for the year, and both Cllr and Fleetwood have retained their good status, so that's very good news for our coastal resorts. Apart from that, Madam Mayor, I'll do my best to reply to any questions put to me.
Are there any questions? Councillor Lynn Walmsley, please.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. It's just to highlight the work that the Flood Forum is doing, and from that, this stemmed the flag groups that are working extremely hard with their residents in various wards. So it's just a thank you for everything that's been done on that front, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I do appreciate the work that's being carried out by the flags, and in fact it's one of our planned activities this year to expand the flags in various other areas, because I do think they do show the advantage of having local people involved in the protection of their areas and the people that live within it. And I think the last events in South Yorkshire and Derbyshire show how, you know, tragic the situation is, and that we've all got to do our very, very best to try and prevent those sort of things. And I'm very pleased to say that the Lancashire Fire and Rescue went out to help their comrades in that area to try and assist the people that have been blighted by those very severe floods. So we know what we're up against, and it's my policy as best I can to prepare us so that if the worst does happen, that we can meet it as best we can. Thank you for those comments, though.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. Councillor George.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just to extend my thanks again for the work that the community safety team have been doing. They spent a lot of time with us during our public meetings and before them as well. And I'd just like to extend our thanks for that.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate what you said. I mean, one of our officers did attend both meetings that have been held recently in Fleetwood, and she's reported back to me. So, you know, I've taken on board what has been said. I think it's important to stress that there are a small number of people, young people involved. The vast majority of young people in Fleetwood are very well behaved and they have great creative lives. But we have to tackle the few. We do a lot of activities. I think this was raised at the meeting. We do a lot of activities, and we've just got to get across to people how many activities there are taking place in our area. In fact, there's 15 tonight that activities that are occurring within the borough of Wyre. So we do put a lot on, but we must get it across to everybody that there are facilities, and we will work with people to make sure that our young people are purposely deal with their lives and can develop properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. If there are no further questions, that concludes the consideration of the Neighbourhood Services and Community Safety Portfolio Report. The next report is from the Leisure, Health and Community Engagement Portfolio holder, Councillor Limbo. Would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My report's before you, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Councillor Bowen? Councillor Turner? Councillor Birch? Have a flashback to my childhood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's not actually a question, Councillor Bowen. Barry and I spent Saturday evening and Monday morning at the Marine Hall, and I'd just like you, if you would, to pass on our thanks for the way that we were looked after on both occasions by the staff there. It was excellent. Thank you very much.
I can fully endorse that. I was there.
We're happy to pass that on, and Julia Robinson and her team do a fantastic job.
Thank you. If there are no more questions for Councillor Bowen, we'll now move on, please. Item 9 is before item 9. It's the opportunity now for members of the Cabinet to make comments or ask questions on the reports of their colleagues. Do any Cabinet members wish to do so? Councillor Michael Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a question for the Leader, if I may. Does the Leader agree with me that Councillor Fayol will be well served to ensure he refers to current evidence when seeking to criticise this Council? The Q2 business plan was presented at Management Board on the 6th of November 2019. There are 13 indicators in the economy section, 2 of which are red, 2 of which are amber, 9 of which are green. There are 13 indicators for the people section. 1 is red, 1 is amber, 11 are green, and for places, 1 is red, 2 are amber, and 8 are green. So don't go to them for the facts, because they are literally 3 months out.
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
That is the one to which I was referring. That is the latest and most up-to-date one. So yes, I agree.
Thank you. That concludes the consideration of executive reports. We'll now move on to agenda item 9, which is a report on arrangements for the appointment of honorary aldermen. Councillor Henderson, would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendations?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. A very nice report to put forward. The proposal is at 3.1 that the title of honorary alderman be conferred on Marge Anderton, Ruth Duffy, John Hodgkinson and Terry Lees at a meeting to be arranged. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder for the proposal?
Madam Mayor, happy to second that.
Are there any comments, questions or amendments? Right, we can now go straight to the vote then. Would members please now vote on the recommendations? Those in favour, please show. That's unanimous, so we can move on. The recommendations are approved. The next item is the periodic report by the Chairman of the Audit Committee. Councillor McKay, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report's before members. I'm happy to take any questions. I'd just like to add to point 3.3. I'd like to offer my congratulations to the accounts team. It was a really difficult year. They had to meet a very, very tight deadline, and the accounts were signed off successfully on the 30th of July. Despite issues coming up in the weeks beforehand, they were dealt with efficiently, and the external auditors actually commented how well the team had worked with them it's interesting to note that 40% of councils nationally didn't meet that deadline, and as of the end of October, our neighbours Lancaster and Blackpool still hadn't signed their accounts off. So it's a huge congratulations to our team. Congratulations to Claire in her role as director. It's very well deserved. I cannot believe the amount of information and knowledge Claire can retain at any one moment. After Philippa, I think we all felt those shoes were very difficult to fill, and they have been filled. She's an excellent officer, so congratulations to Claire. And finally, just to remind members, we have got a shared agreement still in place with our Chief Internal Auditor, and Joe, who is our Chief Internal Auditor, also works at Lancaster Council, and it's a win-win situation. And the sharing of knowledge, the sharing of experience, and we make savings. I think it's 20,000 in the last year, so that's working very well and shows what a forward-looking council we are. So happy to take any questions.
It appears there are no questions, so the report is noted. The next item is the periodic report by the Chairman of the Licensing Committee. Councillor Robinson, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, the periodic report is before members of the Licensing Committee. As you can see, it has been a busy and productive year, so I'd also like to thank the team, the licensing team, and also the councillors whose input has been this year. And happy to take any questions.
No questions, so moving on. The report is noted. We're now up to review of the Council's constitution. Councillor Henderson, it's item 12. Would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendations?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is before members. As usual, this report, the Constitution, is looked at by independent persons. I therefore propose the recommendation at 3.1 to 3.6.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the proposal?
Happy to second that, Madam Mayor.
Are there any comments, questions or amendments? Councillor Fail.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Constitution is extremely important, and although I have absolutely no problem with officers or consultants suggesting changes, I find it astonishing that there has been no member consultation. That it is being presented as a fait accompli is simply not good enough. I am able to alert members to some glaring errors and omissions in the proposed Constitution, and that these alone make a case for this document to be formally reviewed by a committee or group who can give it the attention it deserves. Full Council is not the forum to do that, so I propose that the report be withdrawn for a more formal and considered review by a councillor group where issues raised by councillors can be properly addressed.
Is that seconded?
I'd like to second that, Madam Mayor. And reserve the right to speak.
Just bear with us while we check out the position.
Roy's just checking the exact wording, but from the encyclopedia that's in my head, my interpretation of any proposed amendment is that if the wordings can be taken out and or added to in terms of recommendation, but if it completely negates the recommendation, then it's an invalid amendment. Well, 16.6ai2 to refer the matter to an appropriate body or individual for consideration or reconsideration. But my interpretation of that, it's only full council that can agree to any changes to the Constitution. It cannot be another body within the organisation, such as overview and scrutiny or any other committee. It's this full council that agrees to any changes in the Constitution. What you can do, you can put forward at this meeting any proposed amendments to the wording in the Constitution. That can be seconded, and then we can have a debate on that.
Madam Mayor, when we discussed the social media policy, that was taken away by a working group, discussed, and then it came back to full council for their approval. So I'm not suggesting that it's approved outside of this chamber, just that the discussions about the content of the constitution is looked at in detail, and that hasn't happened this time. I have a list of omissions and glaring errors in there, and they need looking at.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Members, if they so wish to, can vote on the amendment's been proposed and seconded. Technically, you can have a debate on an amendment and a proposal that's seconded, but then you would take a vote on the amendment, and if the amendment is lost, then we revert back to the substantive motion, which is as in the report. So do you want to go straight to the vote on terms of we've had an amendment and we've had a proposal? But technically you were allowed to speak to an amendment for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'd like to speak on it, please, then. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I alerted members to the existence of some glaring errors and omissions in the proposed constitution. Point 1, paragraph 5.6 doesn't deal with the motion passed in December 2018 with regard to the calendar of meetings. Aside from a change to overview and scrutiny procedures, the other changes required by the motion appear not to have been acted upon. Firstly, with regard to the need for the Constitution to make it clear that the calendar of meetings is a member responsibility, and secondly, the increase in time for member questions to Cabinet at full council. Point 2, 5.14 and 5.15 of this report relate to the procedures for allocation of seats on committees. For a £4,000 plus consultant review, you would expect better than a superficial look at whether fractions or percentages are used. Had they bothered to look beyond May's agenda, they would have noticed that Labour's previous complaint was actually with regard to the use of rounded percentages. This lack of precision was in the main remedied in the May 2019 agenda by the use of percentages to 2 decimal points, rather than the no decimal points that were employed in the July 2018 and December 2018 agenda. I am grateful that somebody has finally agreed that with Labour's assertion regarding the erroneous methodology employed in 2018, albeit without any public recognition or apology to that effect.
I thought you were joking.
The lack of written procedure was the cause of the over-allocation.
Please show some respect and listen to whoever's speaking.
The lack of written procedure was the cause of the over-allocation of committee places to the Conservative group on both those earlier occasions. Those over-allocations were in contravention of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989. At the December 2018 meeting, I asked that when the Constitution was fully reviewed, it was formalised so that it was fair to all councillors and groups. This has not happened, and there were no assurances that this ridiculous scenario won't happen again. So in order to put this right, the Constitution needs amending. With regard to the allocation of park places, the assertion by the consultants that the majority group can decide who gets what committees is baseless and not covered by the Local Government and Housing Act 1989. As such, an agreed approach needs documenting within the Constitution. Point 3. Appendix 1C, para 9.3 is suggesting members of the public should submit questions 2 calendar days prior to the day of agenda dispatch. Not only is the earliest submission a problem, but without a precise date of agenda dispatch stated, it is impossible to determine the date by which questions need to be received. In a nutshell, the para is in need of some additional text to provide clarity. But irrespective of this lack of clarity, the intention is clearly to ensure all questions are submitted prior to the issue of the agenda. This is needlessly creating a problem in that the public and members alike will be unable to ask a written question about an agenda item. However infrequent such questions may be, this change only succeeds in reducing the ability to hold the council to account. Point 4. With regard to full council motions, it's clear from July's meeting that invalid amendments to full council motions continue to be allowed, despite the Constitution stating that amendments are only allowed as long as the effect is not to negate the motion. Where the key aim of a motion is being incorrectly allowed to be changed, as it was in July, there is a need to amend the Constitution so that it is more explicit. Appropriate changes to paragraph 16.6 of the Council Procedure Rules would stop the invalid amendments currently and incorrectly being allowed. Point 5. With regard to the Cabinet procedures, there appears to be a completely needless and detrimental change to paragraph 2.6 on page 118 regarding the ability of members to speak. If I attend Cabinet, I expect to have the ability to speak, whether I do or don't end up speaking. I should not have to request to speak beforehand. What happens if, during Cabinet, something is said which unexpectedly requires the intervention of a non-exec councillor? This proposal is a move from the custom and practice of allowing all members to speak at Cabinet if they are in attendance. These are just a few of the many reasons why the Constitution needs a more formal and considered review.
Thank you, Councillor Fylde. Does anybody wish to speak to this amendment? Councillor Michael Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To be clear, I'm not going to propose my amendment to the Constitution now. I'll wait till this one gets voted down. Essentially, Madam Mayor, what Councillor Fylde is saying is I wish to propose amendments to this, but I haven't been bothered to draft them. One of his points is valid, and that's the point. He's picked up on it for one part, but he's not picked up on it for the other two, which is the use of the agenda dispatch date. And to deal with that, I have drafted an amendment which I will deal with once his amendment has been voted on. It is for full council and nobody else to review the Constitution. All members have been sent a copy of the amended Constitution. All members can propose amendments to a proposal to amend the Constitution. As such, he could quite easily have proposed amendments that suit his agenda, and that's what it is, his agenda. He's not interested in making it fair, he's interested in reflecting what he wants. So essentially, it should be clear, so does reflect not work both ways, he should be clear on how he thinks it should be calculated, and he thinks that membership of groups should be calculated in whatever way favours the Labour group, because ultimately it says that the way we did it was wrong. Well, the way he did it actually bumped up Labour's numbers, so by his own logic that would have been wrong. So it's a nonsense. There's been nothing productive brought forward. He wants to go away and have a conversation about it, but the conversation will be the same as this one, because any group would have to have political balance. But there can be and there should be no group, because it is for this council to determine the Constitution.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Councillor Bevis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nobody else wants to speak? I believe that the Constitution needs to be looked at by the councillors who have to abide by the rules. I believe that the Constitution in its present form does not allow the Wyre councillors to properly represent the people of Wyre. One of the recent changes, the rule that only the ward councillor can call in a planning application, is in my opinion ridiculous. I represent all of Wyre and Fleetwood, and I believe that all councillors should be allowed to call in any planning application, wherever it may be in Wyre, if this affects the lives and outcomes of the people of Wyre. I believe that this rule change to the Constitution was made because I was asked by a resident of Poulton-Le-Fylde to call in a planning application because her Wyre councillors would not do it. This application had been submitted to build flats on the land directly next door to her property. It was after this that the rule change was implemented, along with reducing the number of residents who could speak at a planning meeting to only 4. And only the ward councillors who represented the ward are now allowed to speak on or call in a planning application. I believe this is totally undemocratic, and it takes away the voice from our communities and our residents. Before this change to the Constitution was implemented, the application
for the apartment block on Fleetwood Beach pier side was heard in the Marine Hall and in this chamber. The residents and councillors of Fleetwood could all speak on this planning application and could all voice their horror at the thought of building on our beaches. And although the outcome wasn't what the people of Fleetwood wanted, at least they felt they were heard. I believe we need to bring back democracy into this council, and the only way this can happen is if we withdraw the constitutional changes from this agenda tonight, and we set up an all-party working group to look at the constitution page by page with the help of the officers, so that it works for all of the people of Wyre and not just the few.
Thank you, Councillor Beavers. As proposed for the amendment, Councillor Fair, you have the right to sum up.
There's more people voting for them, there will be few.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To answer one of the many points made by Councillor Michael Vincent, it is my understanding that the Standards Committee were previously tasked with providing a formal review, and I've no problem with whatever group is decided looking at it and then coming back to full council. That's not the issue. The examples given earlier provided evidence of the need to withdraw this report, but there is further evidence, the Executive Reports Agenda item at full council being one. It should just be about non-exec members holding the Cabinet to account, yet we have the monthly pantomime, normally starring the Cabinet member without residence in Wyre. I use the term starring loosely, but despite there being no reference to the charade on the physical agendas, Cabinet members can ask each other any questions, irrespective of how contrived those questions may be. There are also a number of recent changes to the Constitution which need to be revisited, as well as the ones mentioned by Councillor Beavers. The 2016 changes to the ONS calling procedures were unhelpful, and quite frankly, the thinking employed was both confused and inconsistent. Just why some in this council wanted to effectively stop members of overviewing scrutiny from calling in executive decisions is laughable. On one hand, a ward councillor who is a member of the planning committee can call in an application for determination by the planning committee without barring themselves from taking part in the debate and voting on the application. And on the other hand, a decision made by a cabinet member cannot be called in by a ward councillor who sits on overview and scrutiny without barring themselves from taking part in the scrutiny. Apparently, with regard to planning, the member has not predetermined the outcome of the planning application consideration, whereas the overview and scrutiny member who calls in the cabinet decision has predetermined the scrutiny of the decision. Irrespective of this confused and inconsistent thinking, the result yet again is that councillors have a reduced ability to represent residents. Along with other damaging changes made to overview and scrutiny procedures in 2016, there was one welcome change. Amazingly, that change would be reversed if this recommendation was passed. That change reduced from 4 to 3 the number of councillors required to call in an executive decision for scrutiny. Without any reasoning provided in the report, this change for the good is being quietly removed. This will have the effect of reducing the ability of smaller groups to hold the executive to account. There are other changes that should be considered, but as I said at the outset, they need to be considered in a more suitable forum. I therefore propose that the report be withdrawn for a more formal and considered review by a councillor group where issues raised by councillors can be properly addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairley. That concludes the debate on the amendment. Would members now please vote on the amendment? So those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against, please.
Three.
Any abstentions?
5.
The amendment is lost, so we now move to the substantive motion. Are there any amendments? Councillor Michael Vincent, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Amidst all Councillor Fylde's opposition to the amendments to the Constitution, which are nothing more than a tidying up exercise, as members will have seen, the one thing he was right about, so it happens occasionally, is that at 9.3, there's a tidying up exercise that basically says that at the moment questions can be placed on notice by members of the public or councillors, and they can go in up to the Monday at 12 noon. That is after the agenda has been published. We now will get it electronically, so the idea is that that date be brought forward. Everyone knows when the council meetings are, so everyone has plenty of notice when they are. They get told in April or whenever the agenda gets set down for the full year, so everyone knows when the date would be. But it's not clear by saying the day the agenda is dispatched as to what day the question has to be in by. So just to simply make it clear, and I've had this, I've agreed this with wording of this with Roy, if members are agreeable as well. At the very end of paragraphs 9.3, 12.2 and 14.1, you don't need to check them, they basically all deal with questions on notice from councillors or members of the public at various different committees. The wording, the date of agenda dispatch shall be 7 calendar days prior to the date of the meeting. Just so everybody knows what it is. So if the meeting was on a Thursday, deadline will be 12 noon on the Tuesday before.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Is there a seconder for that proposal?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Do members wish to debate that?
Point of clarification first. Can I just ask whether this is the one and only amendment?
Well, it's my only amendment. We're not bringing any more forward, if that helps.
I'm just wondering, Madam Mayor, why we've not got a suggested amendment for paragraph 5.6 with regard to the calendar of meetings. The reason I asked that, Madam Mayor, is that Councillor Michael Vincent requested at the December 2018 meeting that a constitutional amendment be made to the effect, and I quote, that the calendar of meetings is a matter for this chamber. So I'm just wondering whether Michael Vincent has forgotten, Councillor Michael Vincent has forgotten that, or, you know, I know it's quite a while ago, but nonetheless he did state that the calendar of meetings is a matter for this chamber. Unfortunately,
what's this?
Unfortunately, that is not in the changes put forward as outlined in paragraph 5.6. It doesn't deal with it.
5.6 of what?
5.6 of the report.
Sorry, Michael, just because it's a point of clarification, if I can assist. In terms of the calendar of meetings, that is a matter that's brought before full council, and it's full council that approve the calendar of meetings. So there is a formal approval process that is in existence, and if members wished at that meeting, they could propose amendments to have additional meetings or less meetings or more meetings or whatever you wanted to, and then we would have a debate on that. So officers will prepare a report which will bring before members a proposal of a calendar of meetings, but it's brought before full council for approval and or debate.
Sorry, Madam, there was a motion put forward in December 18 where it said there needed to be some changes to the Constitution to ensure that it was clear that the calendar of meetings is a matter for this chamber, and that wasn't the point at the time. It was the issue in December 2018 was that it was being put to council as a fait accompli, and unfortunately, you know, there was some long discussions, and eventually.
I think I can bring some clarification to. I think it was around the discussion on the word was consultation. So, for example, we have recently proposed that we change the dates of full council because of the general election. And I followed the new procedure that had been proposed by members, which was to consult with the leaders of various groups, which included Labour, I think then it was UKIP before you'd formally give them a notice, but we did consult with you, and we did consult with you, Councillor Fylde, as leader of the Labour group, to seek your consent that we change the meeting. So I did say, well, Roy did it on my behalf to say we are consulting with you. So we did follow what members had said in terms of the process.
Just to continue this clarification, I have seen that it says at the end of 5.6 that the word consultation be replaced by discussion. To me, that's not in keeping with the motion. You'd have to look at the motion that was taken at the time and passed at the time. But clearly what was also taken in that motion was that a maximum of 11 minutes will be allocated for questions or comments to and responses from each member of the executive. Even that, which we disagreed with, hasn't been put forward as an amendment to this.
It's not a point of clarification anymore. He's trying to get me to amend my own amendment.
Well, I'm saying that any more amendments
point of
being put
clarification.
forward.
Councillor Vincent is right, it's not a point of clarification. We've had one amendment put forward, so we've made a note of that. The procedure is now, are there any other proposed amendments? So you still have time as members, if you so wish, to propose amendments, have seconders and have debates on that.
So can I ask that the motion that was put forward in December 2018 is actually acted upon, because at the moment, this moment in time, it hasn't been acted upon.
Sorry, Councillor Fylde, I'm trying to be helpful, but I'm myself getting a little bit confused. Because you referred earlier to a discussion that was had, which you felt should go in the Constitution, was to increase the time of the executive from 10 minutes to 11. So is that a proposed? It wasn't
amendment? Even it wasn't our request. It was the Conservative group's request to change it from 10 to 11 minutes.
We're not.
And it was the motion was passed.
In this
chamber.
Councillor Fylde, it's not a debate. I'm asking you, do you want to propose that as a formal amendment?
No.
Right, thank you. So, we can take the vote on the amendment as proposed by Councillor Michael Vincent and as seconded by Councillor Alan Vincent.
Could those in favour please raise their hands?
You suggested this in your own little rant. Yeah, it's wrong, but we don't want to change it.
Can we not have this cross chatter please while the vote's taking place?
38.
Are there any against?
Got 8. You can't debate because your own leader said it.
Any abstentions? The amendment is therefore carried. Are there any other proposed amendments? We can now proceed to the debate on the substantive motion. Does any member want to speak on the substantive motion? No? So we are now going straight to the vote. Would members please now vote on the recommendations? With those in favour, please show. Can we stop the chatter, please, while the count's taking place?
My apologies, Dr. Moore.
Those against? Any abstentions? The recommendations, therefore, are approved. Moving on to item 13. The next item is on the Councillor Development Strategy and Development Programme. Councillor Henderson, would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendations?
Certainly, Madam Chair. The report is before members and I should like to propose recommendations 3.1 to 3.8, and I would also once again like to encourage members to take up any training opportunities to all members that is put before them, and if they consider anything that they wish to pursue, if they would contact Duncan Jack. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this?
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any comments, questions or amendments? There aren't any, so we can go straight to the vote in this case. With those in favour, please show. That's unanimous, so we can move on. The recommendations are therefore approved. The next item on the report is the membership of the Council's Independent Remuneration Panel. Councillor Henderson again, would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendations?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The recommendation is 3.1, and I should like to say thank you to Mr Ryan Hyde and the Reverend John Squires for putting their names forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the proposal?
Happy to second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are any questions, comments or amendments? None, so we can go straight to the vote. Those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. So the recommendations are therefore approved. Moving on to notice of motion, which is very brief as there are none. And that concludes the business for this evening. The meeting is closed. If it's not too early, I'd like to take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy and peaceful Christmas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You trust me with that?
You shoot the other ones. I gave it Peter. Peter's got one off Gerald.